So this base game update with glass walls just came out, and of course I had to interrupt what I was building to test out what you can do with this. Hear me out. Like, what about a plant humidity dome? I feel like it's just really important that we find out if we can make this now. So we're starting off in, where is this? It's the werewolf world. What's it called? I don't know. I have my mannequin here for scale, and we're of course going to do a circle because we want to do one of these circular plant humidity domes. I was having a few issues with this to begin with, where it wasn't actually letting me make these curved walls a circle, so I had to do some jigging around and sort of trick it to do what I want as per usual, the game just being stubborn, etc. But I had no plan for this, other than to make one of these like glass column domes. So that's the first thing I'm going to do here. And the rest of it was just completely made up on the spot. It's not going to be like the most amazing build I've done because it was all very impromptu, as I said. But I'm basically just making here initially just to see, can I make one of these like domes? It looks like one of these humidity domes you can get from like IKEA for a plant or whatever. Seeing what it looks like when you place a door. The curves have issues in this game. And so we're going to see a few issues with this as we go through. So number one, the glass textures and everything, like absolutely amazing. Great. I'm going to do so many things with these glass wall swatches. However, when we're in these circular rooms, and I've had issues with this is not the glass walls that they've added. This is the circular rooms in general. When you have more and more floors above and you then like go up the floors, anything on the lower floors just starts disappearing. Like, the game does not want to show you what is through the glass on a curved wall if you're more than like 2 floors above. So that became a slight issue with building this. I had to do some trickery to get some like good shots at the end. But as you can see, I pretty much just made what looks almost like identically like one of these glass domes with the wooden base. And I had this idea, which is the funny thing, is that I actually had the idea to do something like this last week when I was thinking about what I could do for potential fairy house builds when the new expansion comes out. And I'd seen on Pinterest people using these domes to make like mocked up nature scenes, like tiny nature scenes with like fairy wings in them and things, using, you know, dried sticks and preserved moss and things like that. And so I tried to actually do this last week, and it didn't work because I only had windows. So the fact that this then a few days later came out with this update that I had no idea was coming with glass walls was kind of really funny, because I'd just come up with this idea that actually really needed this putting in the game. So that was really good. I'm very excited, and it means that so many of my fairy ideas that I have for when the expansion comes out I can now go ahead with. So that's really good. There's still this issue with the walls. You can see the trees. The tree on the bottom is now not showing if you look through this speed build replay. Some camera angles, things just start disappearing. So that's a problem, and I really wish that they will fix that. I think that's going to become more of an apparent problem though, that now that glass walls are a thing, people I suppose weren't putting windows on curved walls as much. Whereas now that you can literally just make a curved wall glass, more people are going to start getting frustrated with this problem in the game, I think. So I'm hoping that will get patched at some point soon, which will make this, you know, a lot better for recording and etc. But the theme of what I'm building here, I knew I wanted to build something underneath because I wanted this to be a functioning house. I ended up going with this sort of almost like garden colonial old brick stone style, like very old property. I'm not really sure what it is, and I don't really know the names of styles either, so it just is what it is. Is this the most realistic house? Does the layout make sense? Not really, because I was doing it all very impromptu. But I just knew that I didn't want to build a whole house inside this glass dome. It wasn't big enough. So the plan is that that's going to be the bedroom, and then the rest of the house is going to be underneath. And I think because I hadn't planned this, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to use this to just do something really random and just see what happens and see what comes out of it. No plan whatsoever. So that's why it turned out it almost reminds me of like a bit of a miniature or something. Like, I'm not quite sure what it reminds me of. It's just a bit odd, isn't it? So here I'm going to put some ivy all on the walls, and I have recently very much streamlined the CC that I use. I've made a new, very small CC list with the intent on using the gallery more rather than the Sims file share, because I've been having no end of like issues with the Sims file share. So I've now added a very small CC list using all of these external sort of things that I use, including this ivy, which is by Felix. But I've cut back loads, so it's a very small CC list, and I will link it, and then it should be very easy to just upload to the gallery, and then you know you can just download the little CC list. It's very, very small. It won't take up much space on the PC. And yeah, that's my new way of doing things that I'm going to be trying out. But I just couldn't get rid of. I couldn't get rid of my ivy. I had to keep it. All of these modular pieces that make creating all of these floral shapes. Not floral, that's flowers, isn't it? Nature shapes, leafy shapes. Just so much easier with the CC set. So yeah, I wanted this to be quite natural. I think I'm almost prepping myself for the fairy expansion and the fact that I will probably go very OTT with the nature themes during that one with this. And we're also adding some gutters, which is another CC item that I kept. Again, most of it's just exterior stuff. Because I also figured that we're at this point in the game now where there's so many items actually in the game that I don't need all of the CC. And I don't know. I don't want to exclude everyone who doesn't want to download a bunch of CC as well, which is another thing. So we're going to sort of head inside now, and I'm going to add this ladder in. You can see I've not done a huge amount. I've just added a bench and a little bit of grass, because before we actually finish off with that dome and what's going to be inside it, I'm going to do the interior downstairs. And you can see that this shape is like what is this shape? I don't know. It took me a while to figure out how on earth I was going to lay out an actual like house inside this shape that I've made, because I didn't particularly plan that when I made the shape. There's also some slight clipping issues where the curve meets the straight walls, but I just had to place 2 columns there. It's not columns, archways. And that sort of just fixed that problem. There's a slight gap in the floor. I'll cover that up with a rug later on. However, as I'm sorting out this interior, I do have another build planned that I've been doing, that I was doing before I started this one. And the plan is that one will come out on Monday. That's going to be a bit more sort of detailed, and actually, you know, I did that one with a plan compared to this one, which I'm just making up as I go along, just to test out, you know, what I could do. I really didn't, for testing, I really didn't need to do all this lower bit, did I? But I wanted to make a complete house and see what I could do, and you know, see if I could make something with a little terrarium dome that actually sort of, you know, worked. I cannot tell you what the style of this is. It's just something a bit weird, fantasy. I was just prepping for the fairies. That's all this was. So I'm splitting up this middle section. I'm gonna have these 2 exterior rooms at the sides, and then this middle section I'm splitting up to have like a kitchen and dining and bathroom. And the layout was a challenge, so it ends up very weird. It kind of works somehow, you know, because the build's quite old style. I find that in a lot of these old builds, there are some really bizarre layouts. I've looked through like old terrace builds when I've been looking to move to rent and things, and there's some rooms in there and you're like, how is this a shape? How is this a shape? So I just went with it and said, you know what, we'll just go weird with it, because how else do you make rooms in a circle? You know, it's not the easiest. So we're inside doing the bathroom, and again, this was a little bit inspired by one I've seen in an old build, but I'm keeping all the interior quite plain, just sort of white. I didn't want to go too in depth with it. This is not a long video, it's just like a quick one, just because I wanted to do something. And to be honest, I almost didn't even record myself doing this, but I thought, you know what, if this turns out to be something half decent, I'll be annoyed if I hadn't recorded it, so... And the other reason I stripped back a lot of my CC, I'm using these, again, wall pieces. I kept a lot of wall pieces because those are lacking in the game, but then they have added some that meant that I didn't really need all of my CC anymore, especially this, what would you call it, like, a wall, you know, oh, what do you even call that? Like a faux wall. I think it's called a faux wall in the game that was added in the bathroom kit, so you can make, you know, wall details with that, which just meant I didn't need one of my CC sets that I was using that had a very similar item in it. So all of the things I've kept are pretty much just construction, infrastructure, detailing, CC, and then the rest of it I'm trying to just use a lot more base game. Although in doing that, although this kitchen's really nice, this is the cottage cheese living one, there's a lot of items in this game where I've found, now that I've reduced my amount of CC, some of them I'm just like, why would I use this? So there's some really nice items. The items in this game are either really nice or just awful. Like, just awful, and I would never use them. And then the other thing that was annoying me, because I think the CC creators all use very similar palettes and they always add a lot of swatches to what they've done. So you can mix and match and come up with like the same wood texture for different items, whereas I don't know what the Sims do. It's almost like they just close their eyes, click on a color wheel, and they're like, yeah, that's the wood shade. No, we're not going to save this for the next time we use beige. We'll just randomly pick a sort of beige-ish color and we'll do that. So none of the woods match. It's really annoying. Another reason I think why I probably just used a lot of white in this build. I had some issues figuring out how to cover these windows, and there will be some changes by the time we get to the cinematic. Again, this wasn't the most serious build that I was doing. It was more of a test build. So there's some changes that I do a little bit off camera at the end before we go to like the real-time look through. But I am just going to clutter this up just a little bit. Not having all of my clutter items as well has sped up my build process, so that was another good thing that was, you know, kind of good about reducing the amount of CC I was using, because my decorations clutter thing, that was, you know, it would take me hours looking through that. I got this little partition, which also doesn't stay. But yeah, just making this sort of cottagey, old style, I don't know, the theme just became something quite unique to itself, I feel, in this build. So we're going to go around this corner and make a little dining area. And in terms of a circular, well, it's an entire, you know, the whole center area is a complete circle. So the fact that I was working with a circle, I'm actually quite happy with how the layout came out. You know, it's not the most easiest thing to navigate if you were to live here. You have to sort of walk all the way around from what's going to be the living room to the bathroom. But it's not too bad for a build that I hadn't planned to do and just very quickly decided I was going to do. So while we are continuing to decorate, I will just give you some like thoughts, how I want to, plans to try and use these glass walls in future, now that I have figured out that I can make something as bizarre and abstract as a plant humidity dome. I have ideas for when the fairy pack comes out. I kind of want to do, well, another terrarium dome one. I also want to do some like bird cage houses, because I thought that would work really cool with fairies, and also like some sized up outdoor lantern looking builds as well, where I think these glass walls will really come in super handy for doing all three of those ideas. So yeah, I'm very excited for the next expansion. And it's odd because normally I really could not care less about any of these whimsical like occult things that they add to the game. Whereas, I don't know, I feel like maybe I'm just in an era where I'm wanting to find some escapism in fantasy and nature a little bit, and I'm really excited to do some very abstract, completely nonsensical fairy builds. And these glass walls are going to really help me do that, and placing plants on roofs, which I have done outside. I did it a little bit, but I kind of knew that was coming, but I didn't know the glass walls was coming, which is why I haven't focused as much on trying to put plants on roofs. But what I have found is that it's not all of the plants. It's like a select number of them, which you can find in the roof decorations. So it's fairly easy to know which ones work because they're in the roof decorations tab. I do wish they would extend that a little bit more to some maybe like of the debug ones or live edit ones that I use quite a lot. And the other thing is that I am hoping, now that they've created some kind of ability for the plants to sort of slant down at an angle, we should maybe at some point get it so that it also follows terrain. The sloping of terrain. I feel like there's no reason that they wouldn't be able to do that now with the same plants. Currently it doesn't work. It's like the first thing I tested. Like, if you can place them on a roof, will they mold to the terrain? They don't, unfortunately, but I'm really hoping they add that next, because I'm always doing terrain nonsense and then struggling to place plants on it because they just float around and everything. So we're just sort of finishing off here with some details. Again, some more wall CC. This one's by Harry, this little coastal exterior trim. And I just wanted to make this just a little bit more detailed than I had done so far. So changing the walls a little bit. Again, it's not the best build I've done because I didn't really think it through that much. It was just sort of me playing around and seeing what happened. But now we're going to move into the actual dome area, which I've got all of these nature-themed things out. And this you can potentially consider a little bit of a taster of the kind of thing that I'm planning to do when the expansion comes out, but just on a much more toned-down scale, just to see how it works. The problem is, as soon as we go up levels, everything on this lower floor just vanishes because of how the camera is working through the curved glass. And I'm sure that the game doesn't have the same issue if this room was, for example, a square. It's something about the transparency of a curved wall. The game just wants to remove everything, almost as if it's like blocking the camera. You know, when it like removes a tree from the foreground because it calculates that it's blocking your camera angle. It almost does that with everything inside. So yeah, again, I really hope they fix that. Otherwise I'm going to have to just sort of maybe not do circular, but try and make builds in more of a square or a hexagon. Because again, hexagons are not a... Is it a hexagon or is it an octagon? I think it's an octagon, right? They're still straight walls, so I think that problem doesn't arise during that. But yeah, just got some little... It looks a bit fairy-ish, doesn't it? But here we are. Here's the finished build. Not the longest video, I just wanted to do something a bit unique. I think it's very unique, but you see I've had to do this weird camera angle to show you. And now I've had to lower the walls to, you know, otherwise everything was disappearing inside. It was a little bit annoying. But yeah, we'll go through and have a little look. So this is the interior of this dome, very naturey. Again, I could have detailed this about like 10 times the amount that I have done here. I just was testing things out. And then living room. I really like how these walls turned out after I was being all pernickety about them for quite a while. Now there are some paintings in this, and these are no CC paintings that I found on the gallery. If you don't know what no CC paintings are, oh my god, go and look. They just saved my life during this build. Now that I don't have my CC paintings anymore. Here's the bathroom. You know what, when I was building this I kind of hated it, but I don't hate it as much anymore. But yes, little study room. But yeah, just a quick one. Thank you so much for watching. Be kind to yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.